Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Susy from Emergency Encounters, and of course, Robert Prevo, a member of Monstrous the podcast. Both are scientists for the Midnight Society, have teamed up with, of course, Bigfoot's Barbershop, as we again take a walk into the darkness of the fox den and try and figure out what is occurring with the madness known as the Dogman. Yet please allow me to feed. Absolutely delicious. I do appreciate all three of you bringing me nutrients to feast on. Now that you have released my shackles, it is once again time for all of us to go werewolf hunting.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, officially it is midnight lycanthropy time here on LordeStarfox Radio. Yes, we have Susy and Robert Prevo from the Midnight Society science team already sitting in the darkness of the fox den and around the late night fire as we again burn the timber into the early hours of the morning. And guess who else is joining us, which you should know. Of course, it's Sunday, so that means Mr. Barber, aka Bigfoot's Barbershop.
Hi, I'm Susie. I'm a psychic medium for Pocatello Paranormal Research. And I also have my own TikTok and Facebook, Instagram under Intuitive Taurus Moon, which I do daily or weekly check-ins. And then that's where you can contact me for personal and private readings.
Hey everybody, good to be here again. I'm Robert Prevost. I am the host of Monstrous the podcast, which you can find on YouTube and everywhere else, including Rumble and Spotify. And we've got a new webpage out that we're still working on and will be working on for probably the foreseeable future, and that's monstrousPodcast.com.
I am Barber and LordeStarfox sidekick on the weekends.
Yes, exactly. Great stuff. Well, Susie, we are going to toss you the good old mic.
Okay. I've been doing some research. I've had some friends doing research and sending me things. Well, so the most interesting thing I came across was a recent interview by a retired policeman. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, he is over there in your, little corner of Dogman, Bigfoot area. And he said that he had went out camping after retirement and was just enjoying the fire at night. And he had what looked like a dog or a wolf start approaching him, circling his camp. And he said that it got close enough that he started to notice the hair on it. It was black, it was dark. And then he said that its ears were really pointy and its eyes were red. And then it stood up on its hind legs. And then he said that he was actually frozen. He said he didn't feel like it was frozen in fear. He said he felt like it was something sent him, like a mental type state or a spiritual type state that froze him. and he couldn't move. He couldn't hardly think. He couldn't talk. He wanted to reach for his pistol on his side. Nothing was happening. And he could sense that this creature was sniffing him, and trying to smell the fear. And he knew that he wasn't supposed to just show any fear at all. So the interesting thing about this is he said that he hadn't been really a religious man, but at that time he started to pray. He said he started to pray inside of his head, saying Bible verses, and prayers. And he said slowly but surely, he eventually started to regain some movement to where he could blink his eyes, and then he could start saying the prayers out loud. And when he started to speak and say the prayers out loud, this creature backed up from him a little bit, but didn't move completely away. And he said that he could see it just grinning at him, but it wasn't a very nice grin. And he kept going and kept going with the prayers. And then finally, he said his body completely unlocked and he was able to draw his pistol and point it at the creature. And then at that point, he said he knew still that he wasn't supposed to show any fear. And then the creature sensed that, it might be in trouble. And then it left and didn't come back. But he said that was the most intense thing he had ever been through. But my thing I thought was interesting is I have never, so far in all the research, come across any of the frozen aspect of that. How about you, Mr. Barber? Have you come across anything like that?
I haven't heard of the frozen other than, being in fear. Now, prayer I have heard of. When people encounter some of these things, they start praying, and it seems to make the predator back up.
Yeah, that's what was crossing my mind, because I was thinking, okay, so if it responds in a negative manner towards that, then there's got to be something to that, right? I don't know, it was just very surprising to me that it would have a reaction to that. Has there ever been any other reports of Dogman having any other different color of eyes besides red?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
been reports of tons of different eye colors. There's been a red, a yellow, a blue, an amber colored, green has popped up several times, even a whitish looking yellow. Um, it's kind of been through the full spectrum. I don't know if I've ever heard of any having like purple eyes or anything like that. Although now we're probably going to have a flood of people who are now going to say that they saw Dogman with purple eyes. But yeah, so that report, that Dogman report is really interesting, and especially the part about the prayer. Now, I have a little bit of a different view on that. What you find a lot of times, okay, so let's say Dogman is some type of entity that also feeds on fear. Well, if you're saying prayers, you're encouraging, you're strengthening yourself, whether there's a supernatural side to it or not.
So, as far as these other Dogman having different colored eyes, do they show aggression with only red? Or are they aggressive with the green and the yellow and the white?
From what I've seen so far in the data, I don't really see where there's been enough data collected to make an assumption one way or the other.
Very great stuff by everybody right there. Again, whew. Susy, what do you think about that?
Good stuff.
All right. Well, I have a few more things I'm going to season up our episode with. Jody Cook, one of my really good friends, and also the founder of the North American Dogman Project, as well as other members of his science team at that point in time, and many others went down to the LBL, some sort of infamous case that floats around about how somebody had an encounter and they ended up talking to supposedly a turkey hunter that then was found ripped all apart. According to Jody and many other people that I value their opinion and the own research I've done, is unfortunately people illegally hunt in the LBL all the time. More or less, what they did is they allowed people to run with the whole aspect of it. It was a dogman in the LBL. In actuality, though, where the turkey hunter's body was found was actually up against a tree where there were tire marks that led off to the connected road, which then was able to hit up a area that would get you out of Dodge real quick, meaning Jody also said that none of the hunter stuff or tent or anything was ripped apart or shredded. There was only natural sign of predation on this turkey hunter. They just allowed the locals and people in general to run with the whole term of Dogman.
Yeah. My question now is, because that whole story is connected to a certain person's eyewitness account
Yes.
that they have made themselves fairly famous for. How do we feel? How do we feel about the validity of what they had to say in the first place now? Or, I mean, has that kind of soured the note on their story?
My personal answer is I've just as a journalist always had questions that I've not been able to answer or ask myself. And I'm never one just to take a one sided perspective. Doesn't matter who it's from. If it's always just a one sided perspective, that means we have to either take that at full face value or just have questions.
I agree with you guys. That sounds pretty sus.
You need to question it if there's evidence to the contrary. They might just write it off as an animal attack.
Mm-hmm.
I think the caves are playing a big aspect here, and I believe a lot of remains of missing people. If these cryptids are real, they are dwelling in the caves, whether it's that deep or not. And the last thing I would like to touch base on real quick is, like Susy said, with the taxidermy. I do believe it was called the Shakuwaran. I wish Mr. Tremblay was here right now. But there was what looks to be either a hyena or maybe a dire wolf that was absolutely horribly put together with taxidermy, starting with Susy, then again rolling around to Robert and Mr. Barber. How does everyone feel about all that?
I can definitely agree with you on the cave system. We have so many out here that have not been explored, and they're finding them all the time. And there's some that we've actually considered doing some paranormal investigations on. And even in our national parks, like Craters of the Moon out here, there are loads and loads and loads of them, and tunnels that just go on for miles. So you actually just really never know. And the climates that usually surround the cave system are either too harsh for us, to be out there messing around on them.
Absolutely. I think, caves are definitely a viable option. So I think these things are probably just as human as we are. You were talking about Chunkawarakan.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is an interesting case in itself. I did some digging into that. There's kind of a couple opinions both ways on that. One, that it might have actually just been a regular wolf that was poorly taxidermied. And then there was some other interesting stuff that went along with it that may indicate that it is something else. But it's tied in with the story of these animals in that area that are attacking other things. So, I mean, the story of the Chunkawarakan is actually much older than the taxidermied animal. Um, and it's still, things like that are still happening up there. Yeah, it's hard to make assumptions at this point when you don't have enough data.
Yeah, I agree with everybody on there. Nothing really, they covered it so well. Caves have to come into play.
yes. Excellent stuff by everybody. Well, starting with Miss Susie again, is there anything else you would like to touch base on tonight? Any sort of questions or anything before, again, we go around the loop here and tie this up?
In Craters of the Moon, we are still actually finding old, ancient, like basically refrigerators for our natives here. There's so many out there that, they would take their elk and store it down in there, and it's cold and it keeps it all year round. So, it just makes sense to use the caves for more than one purpose.
Not much else really to add to it. Just wanted to say that I had a ball hanging out with Susie, Brian, and of course the one and only Kenny. And I love these conversations. I love the ones that get me to thinking outside the box. And we talk about the cave thing. There are so many reasons why caves would be applicable.
It's just been a great time to sit down and actually have discussions and It's nice to have open discussions where even when there's difference of opinions, we discuss our points and put them out there. And
My creatures of the night, you legends, you, I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. And remember, there are things that hide in the darkness.